Government communications isn't a walk in the park. Here at the Gov Comms Collective, we tackle some of your biggest questions. I'm your host, Hannah Elizabeth, and I'm excited to get into the weeds with you. So, let's get into it. Good afternoon, and welcome to the next episode of the Gov Comms Collective. I'm your host, Hannah Elizabeth, and I am so excited to be here with Miriam Dixon today. This episode is going to be a little bit different than the previous episodes that you've listened to. So, a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak with a group of PR students at Utah State University, which was such an incredible experience. And I hosted a little giveaway. So the students had to message me and let me know what the most valuable piece of information they received for the day was. And I did a drawing with all the students who responded. And Miriam got lucky, and she is our guest today. So for today, we'll actually be talking to students primarily about what they can do to get their foot in the door, what it's like working in government communications, and just breaking down that it's not always federal government. When we say that we work for government communications, it can be so much fun and it's such a rewarding job. So welcome, Miriam.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so excited to have you. I think we should start off with giving the audience a little bit background of why you decided to take the PR route and why specifically are you interested in government communications? Because a lot of students don't really have a solid idea of where they want to work. And especially when it comes to Gov Comms, that's usually not top of the list. So I'd love to hear how you got there.
Yeah. Actually, when I started school, I was an interior design major, so not in the world of communications whatsoever, but I've always been very fascinated by storytelling and people. I just love meeting people, and I just wasn't getting that people connection in interior design that I was looking for. And then I found the program I'm in now, which is journalism and communications, with my emphasis in PR and social media, but I've just kind of fallen in love with it, and I think it's what I've always wanted to do. I just didn't realize it. I just love connecting with people, communicating, and telling stories, which is, I think, the core of what communications and public relations is. As far as government, that's a newer thing for me that I've just started recently getting interested in. I've always been interested in tourism and travel, and I attended a conference and I was talking to somebody who's a big executive in the tourism industry, and he was like, a lot of people get their start working in the government, understanding kind of the ins and outs of how to communicate with the city. And that goes hand in hand with a lot of what tourism does. So I've started looking into those government positions, comms roles, and I've learned more throughout the past couple of weeks. And I just feel like there's so much potential there that I just want to get more involved with.
That's awesome. So how are you staying involved right now? Like, what are you doing to get involved in communications and for life after college? Because you're a senior now, so you only have a couple more months before you graduate next year. So it must be such a weird feeling. I remember when I was a senior and getting ready for the real world, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'd love to hear your experience there on how you're staying involved.
Yeah, so I am the secretary for the Utah State Public Relations Student Society of America, and that has opened so many doors for me. And then I'm also a operations member of the Student Alumni Association, and so I help them run a lot of their social media and just kind of internal comms, I guess. We make sure everybody stays in the committee, stays up to date on what events we have going on, getting ready for those. But really, it's been PRSSA that's really helped me network with a lot of people. Obviously, that's how I wound up here, is just by networking. And I've really just seen the value of getting to know people and just saying yes to everything that kind of comes my way. That's been a recent of my semester, is say yes to everything, because you never know where that will take you.
That's so true. I remember when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned like how it can be difficult sometimes to get your foot in the door, especially when it comes to government, because it kind of has a tendency to be blocked off. And I know just in my experience, networking has made such a big difference in the roles that I've received, internships that I've had the opportunity to work on. It opens so many doors and it exposes you to so many different people in so many different industries that otherwise your paths may not cross. So definitely staying involved, whether it's through PRSSA, another PR type organization, just community organizations, and reaching out and talking to as many people as you can, it makes the world of difference, especially with trying to get your first job outside of college. it can sometimes be daunting, when you're trying to break into the industry. And networking has been huge for me, whether it's talking to people in jobs that I aspire to land someday, or, family friends, and they're like, oh, I don't work there, but I know someone who can, you should talk to them. And it's kind of a snowball effect where you get in touch with these people. And the more your name gets out there, the more awareness there is around you, and like, oh, so-and-so, I know this person who might be interested in an intro role in government, you should reach out to them. It really can open a lot of doors for you. So it's exciting to hear that you've been staying involved.
Yeah. I got some really good advice the other day. I have an uncle who works in HR a lot, and we were talking about the struggle of like interviewing and like kind of standing out. One thing he was saying when we were talking about networking and knowing people is it doesn't matter who you know, but it matters who knows you. And like when people are thinking about those jobs, if your name is something that comes to mind, that's how you really know you've got that in.
And I know like one thing that I've experienced is no doesn't necessarily mean no forever. It means no for now. I've had several jobs. My first 2 jobs were actually no's at first, and it just wasn't the right time, or there was someone who was better suited. And then, you persevere, you keep sticking with it, you keep those relationships, and it worked out for me in both situations. So absolutely.
100%.
So is there a specific type of government that you're looking into? I know that you mentioned that you want to get into the travel and tourism industry. Are you thinking you want to work federal government, local government, in-house with the city? Talk to me a little bit more of how you see that playing out.
Yeah, I'm definitely more interested in-house within a city. There was a job I applied for that also really just sparked my interest. One of the cities nearby where I go to school, they were hiring for a social media and marketer intern to help promote the city. And I was like, why would a city need a social media marketer? And then I was looking through their social media and I was looking through their website, and I was like, cities need this accessibility for everyone who lives there. Like, it's so hard to communicate with masses, but social media has made it so easy. So it makes sense that cities are moving towards having an active profile or an active account just to help reach everybody who they're trying to find that target audience. So I think city in-house, just kind of to learn the basics. I'm open to going higher than that. But I think as far as starting out, I would like to stay more in-house.
Yeah, I totally see the value in that. My last job, I worked with a consultant firm, and it was a boutique PR firm, but all of our clients were in the public sector. So we actually managed the social media for, I want to say, about 10 different cities. So that was just so much fun. And seeing how it helped strengthen their communities and just kept the neighborhoods aware of what's going on in the city. And sometimes we had to play Mythbusters and, address some of the concerns that we heard on the street. So it's definitely a lot of fun, and you get to learn so much about a city through managing their social media, because you have to have your finger on the beat. Like, you have to know what's going on and being able to read the room, and it's definitely valuable. And even at my first job, when I was working with a transportation planning agency, I managed all of their social media. And transportation comms isn't always super glamorous, but I did get a really strong fundamental understanding of how infrastructure works in communities, because prior to that, like, I was totally clueless, and that's really helped in my second and third jobs and like where I am now. And it's really cool to see how what you learn, especially in your first job, how much that'll translate and provide the basis for following career choices. So it's cool to see there, for sure.
Yeah.
I've been reading through some studies that there's a lot of millennial and Gen Z employees who are really focusing more so on benefits instead of just pay for careers. How is that impacting your decision, if it is at all?
Ooh, that is such a good question. As far as benefits go, I haven't thought much about like the dental and the fun K as much as I probably should. When I think of benefits, I think of more control over my work-life balance. And like, is it a hybrid job? Is it remote? Is it like I have to be in the office every single day from 9 to 5? I think especially my generation is more focused on the work-life balance and understanding how to live your life and enjoy it and not live to work. While I know there are people who love to work, and I'm guilty of this. I'm a workaholic. If I'm working, it's something that I love to do and I'm invested in. But I also want to understand that there's more to life than how much I'm getting paid and enjoying the people I'm with outside of the work world. But I know that's a really common thing I've seen with my generation is everyone asks about, oh, what's your work-life balance? Do you get to spend time with your family and your friends, or are you just at the office all the time?
That's so important. I know that's something that I really value, and especially where I am now, my work-life balance is amazing. If I want to go skiing after work, I have that opportunity. And I know when the weekend rolls around, I have that time for me and my family and to decompress from the week. Because working in Gov, I absolutely love it. I find it super rewarding, but there can be tough weeks where you're putting in long hours and working with the public. It can be exhausting. I like to say that I'm an introverted extrovert. So at work, I'm great at being like bubbly and personable, but in my off time, I'd much rather be curled up in bed with my book and my cat. So I totally understand the value of work-life balance, and it really does make a difference in your personal well-being, whether it's mental, emotional, physical. It all plays together. Is there something that you would like to let the listeners who may be hiring for positions know? Is there something that employers should know about the workforce?
I think one of the biggest things that I've heard is there is this stereotype around Gen Z that we're lazy, we have no like drive, or we're just like kind of floating through life expecting it to be handed up to us on a silver platter. And I just think that is simply not true. At least for me and the people I know in my life, we want to work and we want to give our all into what we do. And it's a struggle to find opportunities right now. Everybody's talking about how the job market is rough out there, even for seasoned professionals. And so I think for Gen Z who are starting to get into the workplace and who are like itching to work, um, we're just waiting for somebody to give us the opportunity so we can prove ourselves. I know for me, I don't have the most pretty resume filled with the most elaborate PR, comms, internships, but every internship I've done, I put my whole heart and soul into. And I'm just waiting to prove what I can do, what I've learned in classes. And I think that's something I've seen with a lot of my classmates as well.
I feel you. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and something will pan out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. Is there anything specifically that you know you've struggled with, either looking for internships or jobs, that you wish you had insight on beforehand, or any advice that either your friends or your classmates are struggling with? Is there anything that I can help you with?
I would say, like I mentioned before, I think the biggest thing that I've seen is I will apply for jobs that I believe I'm qualified for, but they are all online from just a massive job site. And I know that there are thousands of people applying for the exact same job that I am. And I think the hardest part is getting into those interviews, is getting your resume seen. And I think, again, that kind of circles back to networking. If you know somebody who knows somebody in that field, put in a good word. I just applied for an athletics marketing internship, and one of my old roommates happens to be in that internship right now. So I shot her a text and I said, "Hey girl, I just applied for this. If you want to put in a good word for me, I'd really appreciate it." I know some people view that as like, oh, that's like using people, that's like taking advantage of somebody, but I have a genuine friendship with her and she's one of my favorite people. So of course I'm going to reach out and say, "Hey, I know I like you and you like me. So why don't you help a girl out and get me a job?" We'll see if that pans out. But I think just getting your resume seen is one of the hardest things, especially when a lot of things are AI checked.
Yeah. One of the things that I found that helps is having a really solid understanding of the job description and catering your resume to that job description. So if it's very heavy on social media, highlight all of the social media work that you've done. Obviously, you don't want it just about that. You want to show that you're well-rounded and you have experience in other areas, but using the job description as a jumping off point and having it cater to that, to show, one, that you read through it and that you have an understanding of what the job is. And then two, it helps highlight, because your resume is probably going to be the first thing that a recruiter or a potential employer is seeing. Like, chances are they haven't met you before. So this is your first impression. So you want to show them, hey, I'm qualified and this is why, and these are my highlights. So especially when you're tying it back to what you would be doing in that position, it can definitely help. And then when there are opportunities to include a cover letter, that's your place to shine. I love writing cover letters. I just love writing in general, but that's kind of like your brag piece. So put your school highlights, the things that you've been interested in, why you're interested in that job specifically, do you have a personal tie to it? Has it always been a dream to work with XYZ organization? Really show them like who you are and your personality. I think it goes a long way. And then always following up with the recruiter or whoever, HR or whoever might be leading the hiring effort, building a relationship with them. And then even if you don't get selected for the job, follow up and say, hey, I would like any feedback on my resume, or if you do get to the interview phase, or any feedback on my interview to see how I can improve in the future. What was it about the candidate that you did select? What stood out on them, and where can I improve? So just using things as a learning experience will also help. It's disappointing when you don't get the job. I've been there and I've been crushed, and it gets really disappointing. But use it as a way to get insight into how you can either improve or maybe things that you can look for in other jobs.
Yeah. What would be your best advice? Because you mentioned like you want to, in your cover letter, you want to show your personality. And I like to think I'm somebody with a very big personality, but how do you show your personality professionally without like, I don't know, giving people the wrong impression that like too goofy, not professional?
I always write in first person for cover letters. I've seen people who write in third person, and I don't understand why, but I mean, it's personal preference. But using that, and like you said, you want to be professional. So making sure that like your grammar and your sentence structure and all of that is correct, but try not to be show offy. You don't have to use huge words. It's not your SAT or your ACT essays. Just write authentically. Some of the exercises that I've actually done is written it as if I was writing in my journal and it was just for me. And then I go back and I'm like, all right, how can I make this more professional? Like, how can I highlight the experience that I have while also showing what I might have learned, or even inserting like a one-line joke or something in your cover letter? It shows, again, that you're personable, you're not taking things too serious, but you still know how to get the job done, that you're good at doing the job, and that you have the experience to back it up and you have the knowledge to back up what you want to do. But have it almost read like a conversation. It's worked for me. I don't think it's going to work for everybody, and I don't think it's going to work for every job position. But especially with communications, we have to be personable. That's part of the job. So any way that you can make that stand out in your cover letter. I remember when I was applying to school, actually, I signed off by saying namaste because I was really big into the yoga community, and I ended up getting into all the schools that I wanted to. So there's obviously other credentials that play into it. Like if they're asking for a PhD and you only have a bachelor's, it probably won't work out. But if you meet the basic criteria for the job, just show them like who you are, because at the end of the day, these are the people that are going to be working with you. So I always think it's a good idea to like show who you are, highlight your personality in whatever way that may be, whether again, inserting like a little goofy line or highlighting things that you're interested outside of work and tying that and creating like a theme in your cover letter.
Oh, I like creating a theme in your cover letter. That's a really good idea. I like that a lot.
I have hundreds of cover letters that I've written. So if you want, I can share some of those with you and you can get an idea of the direction that I would take.
Yeah. Another thought I have while we're on the topic of writing, how have you seen AI go into the world of government comms specifically? I know I have professors who I have some who are like use AI daily, and others who are like, if you touch a computer, you are dead to me. So I'm confused about where the stance is with AI in the professional realm.
You and me both. I am also confused on where it stands. So right now, there's not really any federal legislation that stipulates you can or cannot use AI. And if I'm wrong, and anyone's listening to this, please correct me because I would love to learn about it. From what I've experienced, it's really up to the different organizations to determine at what capacity you can use AI. So for instance, like right now, I can't use AI at my job. If I want to use it personally to generate ideas for a content calendar, I can use that if I'm on ChatGPT. Oh, give me a list of 15 things that I can talk about for the holiday season. I could do that, but I couldn't say, hey, draft 15 posts about things to do during the holiday season and then give that to the client. Like that's a huge no-no. So it really just depends on the organization. What I've seen personally in Gov Comms is a lot of coworkers and colleagues will use it as idea generation and for admin type tasks. So like what I've done is put in commission agendas and said, highlight this or tell me where this section of the meeting talks about whatever, instead of reading 3 hours of notes or, 700 pages of backup documents. So using that for like more admin tasks, but for like actual workload creation, for the most part, I think a lot of gov agencies are not a fan. That's just the experience I have. Again, I haven't worked in-house for government in quite a few years, but for the most part, I see it just being for like idea generation and doing more admin type tasks that are not public facing or client facing.
No, yeah, it hits the themes that we've been talking about in my classes with like how to use it as like a tool. And I've got an opportunity to meet a couple of other PR professionals, and they've been saying it's more of a tool versus it's going to take my job. Yeah, someone who knows how to use AI is going to take my job versus AI itself.
Right.
That's been a common theme I've seen.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And AI is a great tool. I mean, it's been around way longer than I think a lot of people realize. Like Siri is AI, and that has been around for ages. And everyone loves using Siri. But then you say AI and ChatGPT, and people are like, oh no. So there's obviously ways that it can be used for misuse and things that are not so great. But it is a really great tool. Like you said, like if you don't know how to use it, you're holding yourself back, I think. And it's a tool that you're going to need to know how to use moving forward. But I don't think it's going to be replacing our jobs. I say this frequently, but I think writing is a lost art, and communications in general, there's a lot of people who are not strong in communication. And that's something you can learn and a robot can do. But to be truly effective, like it has to be part of who you are, I think. So that's just my thought on it. We are coming up on time, so I don't know if you have any other questions or if there's anything that you want to leave with the audience.
I think all of my questions have been answered. I would just say to all of my fellow students who are freaking out about the job world, especially if you're younger, just starting out in your communications roles, get involved as much as you can. I only got started really getting involved my senior year. And there's nothing I wish I would have done sooner than go work for the school newspaper or go work for student media and get involved with event planning more, because you meet wonderful people, you learn a lot of skills, and just being able to build that confidence that you get through involvement is something that I think a lot of people take for granted. And I know I took for granted. So get involved.
Absolutely. That's the one thing that I really wish I did more. I was in college. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out this morning to chat with us, Miriam. I had a pleasure talking with you, and I know that, we'll keep this going. And for any of my Gov Comms folks out there who are hiring, please reach out. I would love to connect you guys with Miriam and any of her colleagues and fellow students that may be interested in joining the Gov Comms field. So thank you again. I'll see you guys all soon. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Gov Comms Collective. Like what you heard? Don't forget to share with a friend, colleague, or office bestie. If you're new to the show, welcome. Stay tuned for new episodes released every other week. That's all we've got for today. Catch you next time.